Hello there. Thanks for taking the time to tune on this video. And if you tuned on this video, you're thinking about picking up fly fishing. So what we're going to talk about today are the absolute basics of what you need to get started with fly fishing. Because once you get really into it, right, there are so many different products and different fly lines and different reels. I'm going to really try to boil it down in this video just to kind of take all the complication and intimidation out of fly fishing. So we're going to cover the fly rod and reel. We're going to talk a little bit about the anatomy of the fly line and what kind of makes up this particular setup. We're going to talk about some flies that you should have, and then we'll talk about some necessary gear. And then finally, at the end of the video, we will talk about a few ways that you can save a little bit of money so you can get into this sport affordably. All right, so first, the fly rod, right? How do you choose the right fly rod? Well, I'm just gonna boil it down, right? I'm gonna give you 3 solid options to get you started with fly fishing. The first option is the Cortland Fairplay 5/6 setup. Why the 5/6? Because a 5-weight/6 weight is really the ideal fly rod that'll be great for most trout and most crappie and even some bass, right? That is a great kind of starter fly rod. The Fairplay, I have actually owned Cortland for 40 years, I think it is now. My first fly rod was a Cortland, so I trust that brand and I still have that fly rod today. I purchased the Fairplay Cortland rod that has completely set up, right? It has the rod, the reel, the line, even the tapered leader, and it's under $100, so it's super affordable. Fished it myself and actually had a very good time with it. It's very easy to cast, no complaints when it comes to the Cortland Fairplay, and that's just from my own experience. So that is a great starting fly rod combo that's under $100, right? There's not a lot to invest. So when we talk about these fly rods, right, what exactly is it? Well, if you have a spinning rod today, typically a spinning rod is a little bit shorter than a fly rod. These fly rods will be 8 to 9 feet long. And when you cast the spinning reel, right, you open up the bail or release the bail and you hook it out there. Well, the fly rod is a little bit different. So you pull out floating line. So this thick line right here, this is floating line. Generally, they're about 90 to 100 feet long. You're gonna pull that out and you're gonna notice that the top portion of the floating line is a lot thicker than the back portion. That's essentially the taper, which kind of helps you get the fly line out and start creating the fly cast. And remember, as I've shown in this video right here, you don't have to cast 40, 50 feet to get started. Just enough to get it out there is fine. So behind the fly line, you can kind of see within my reel, there's some red right there. That's called backing. Really the only reason why you have backing, there's 2 reasons. One is kind of fill up the fly reel. Otherwise, if you just have floating line, there's a lot of space left. But also if you catch that really big fish, since you're only dealing with 90 to 100 feet of floating line, you need that backing just in case you get into a fish big enough that pulls all the floating line out, and it's just kind of your reserve. So that's really the purpose behind the backing. Now, tied on or looped to loop on this floating line is called a tapered leader. The reason why tapered leaders are important, you need that taper to be able to present the fly, to roll the fly over. It just helps in the casting process. So you're gonna typically buy either a 9-foot or a 7.5-foot tapered leader. Now you're gonna see that there's a lot of different sizes, right? A great size for most trout fishing and most crappie fishing is a 4X tapered leader. That's about equivalent to a right around 7-8 pound test that you're used to using on your spinning reel. All right, so you've got your fly line, behind that is your backing, in front of that is your tapered leader. How do you choose the right fly reel? If you look at this fly reel, it's very similar to what you're using right now with your spinning rod. This little disc right here turns. This is the drag, just like you have in the front of your spinning rod or on the side of your level wind. This is the drag. So this just kind of helps you put a little pressure on the fish so you're not having to palm it when you're fighting any particular fish. So most fly reels today, unless they're a click and paw, have this disc drag. And then from there, it's just a matter of learning how to cast, practicing, right? It's not about whipping the line back and forth. Just get enough floating line out from the tip of your rod, throw it out there 15, 20 feet, and you would be surprised how much success you can have and not having to bomb it out there a million miles. So I put a lot of casting videos together, and I'll put a playlist right here that you can look after the video just to kind of show you how to cast one of these fly rods. Okay, so next, you got the fly rod, you got a fly reel, you've got the backing, line, and tapered leader. And once again, the Cortland Fairplay has that all, right? I mean, literally it's out of the box, ready to fish. You don't have to get a whole bunch of extra stuff. But what you should have at the bare minimum is that you should have another 9-foot tapered leader with you, just in case you break this one, it gets knots, it just starts to get really short, right? The shorter you get on the taper, the thicker the line, and pretty soon you're either gonna have to tie an extra length of tippet to kind of lengthen the leader, or you're gonna need a new tapered leader. So I'd have at least one of those packages in your pocket, and we'll talk about gear stuff later on how to carry everything, but you can put it in your pocket, no problem. I'd also get a matching roll of tippet. You'll find that these tapered leaders, they're not inexpensive, right? They could cost almost $10 for a tapered leader. So having a roll of tippet, so when you do start cutting into the tippet in this tapered leader, the tippet portion of the tapered leader, you can lengthen it back up, and just by simply using a double surgeon's knot, and now you can lengthen it back up to 9 foot, so you're not going through tapered leaders so quickly. Okay, so now what flies? What are you gonna do about flies? So there's two resources for flies, right? Your local fly shop, support your local fly shop. Those guys would love to tell you all the best trout flies or crappie flies that you can buy, or you can support another family-owned company, Red's Flies. I've been using their flies for a couple years now. They're durable, they're affordable, and because I'm a pro ambassador, you can save 20% at checkout using my coupon code FFD. And once again, you are supporting a family-owned company. They even have a box that I put together specifically for trout. So all of my favorite trout flies are there, but they have a myriad of different assortments, boxes ready that you can purchase. So you've got a fly box to keep your flies in now, and you've got the right flies for what you're targeting, right? It's a great way to start out. There is a necessary tool that you're gonna need, and that is a forceps with cutters. Why the forceps? Because sometimes the fish will eat the fly and it'll go way down in their mouth, and it's tough to get out with your fingers. So a pair of forceps can easily kind of unhook that fly. They're also good at debarbing flies, just in case you're at a fishery that might be barbless hooks only. The other thing is the cutter portion, right? This is a kind of a 2-in-1 tool, so you don't have to have a pair of nippers, but the cutters are so that you can cut line down, or you're not using your teeth, and you know your dentist is going to thank you if you've got a forceps with some cutters on it. The next thing you're going to want is some sort of floatant. I've used two different types of floatants. One is by Loon, it's a great little floatant, and the other one is Flyagra, which is really good. Once you dip your dry fly in this and dry it, you're almost good for the entire day. But you need a little bit of floatant so you're not constantly fighting with your fly sinking. So that's another important piece to have when you're first starting out with fly fishing. So that's really all you need to get started with fly fishing. And now let's cover some other gear that you might want to consider once you've been doing it for a little while. And the first thing you might want to consider is getting another fly rod. And the two brands that I would recommend are Sage Foundation, right? I've been using Sage for a lot of years. This is a Sage TCR I bought 20 years ago. My first Sage was a Sage DS that I bought 30 years ago, and I still have both of these fly rods. I found today's version, Sage Foundation, is a great fly rod, fast action, and it really is built to last. It's a great fly rod. I've got two of those myself, one that I had been using for sea run cutthroat, and the other is the one that I bought for my wife for her very first fly rod. It's a great fly rod for under 500 bucks. And then if you really want to level up, that's where you can go with a custom fly rod, which I'm going to grab right over here. This is my series of fly rod, the FFD series. Basically, this fly rod I designed to build for the new fly caster in mind. It has a carbon fiber parabolic power taper, which is just easier to cast. It's completely custom, right down to the hand turn cord. All right, so now you've got your box of flies, right? You've had that in your pocket and your forceps. You really need something to carry it in. Now there's a ton of different things on the market today, from fly fishing vests to chest packs to sling packs. There are a lot of different things you can carry your flies in, from even a side, like one of those fanny packs, that type of thing. I've gone through a lot of different packs, right? From the vest to different type of fanny packs. What I found has the most room and is the most comfortable to wear for hours and hours and hours are sling packs. This one is from Simms. This is just super comfortable and ergonomic, and I can wear this thing all day long without it hurting my back. So that's one of the reasons why I chose a sling pack. And I can stuff, because once you have your first fly box, you're gonna get your second one, your third one, your fourth one, then you're gonna start getting all sorts of accessories. So eventually you're gonna have to level up and get a pack. I also, you can see my net, here it is. My net is right on the back of that sling pack. So I have a net always at the ready. And that's the other thing, that it's not a need when you first start out, but it really is something that you'll want to have eventually, right? Today, you probably are using a net if you're spin casting, so you can just repurpose that net or buy yourself a new fly fishing net. One of the things that I've done is I use a catch and release netting. It's just easier on the fish, right? Especially if you're fishing from places like this that have native fish in them, catch and release. It's just nice to have a net that really protects the fish, so that next year you come back, you'll be able to catch that fish when it's a pound heavier. So that's the reason why I use nets that are designed with this netting that is designed for catch and release. Super easy on the fish. So the other thing you can do when you first start out is you just wet wade, right? Get a good pair of hiking pants, maybe some sandals, some flip-flops, or your tennis shoes. But what you're gonna find is that during the springtime or during the fall time, you're gonna want some sort of wader, right? And that can get expensive. You can go to Walmart, you can go to some of your big box stores and buy Hodgman. They're not terrible, but they're gonna last you about one season before they start leaking. So I have a partnership with Drift. You can kind of see here, these are their wading pants. Drift really is a great wader company. They're durable, they last a long time. So ultimately that investment that you make up front is gonna last for years and years and years of fishing. But eventually you're going to want a pair of waders or wading pants, because even in the summer months, depending on where you're fishing, your legs and your feet are gonna be bitter cold by the end of the day, and who knows what's gonna be crawling on your leg after standing in a river or on a lake edge all day long. So waders are nice. The next thing is wader boots. Again, they can be expensive. There's some cheap options out there. You kind of get what you pay for when it comes to wading boots. I have been using Corkers now for about 15 years. Part of the reason why I like Corkers is they're durable, and I can swap out the soles. So if I'm just walking a trail, I can put the rubber soles on. If I'm out here kind of in a slippery river, I've got the felts with spikes. If I am fishing a grassy banked river, I'm gonna do the river spikes so I can get plenty of grip. But having a shoe like this gives you that stability when you're walking around these round rocks, slippery round rocks, when wading, and just is really nice to have versus a tennis shoe. So those are things that eventually you're gonna want to get when you really start to get into fly fishing. Unless you just plan to fish during the summer months, then you probably don't need it. You can just use hiking pants and sandals. So other accessories you can get are, of course, like sunglasses. You don't need to go buy the $200 pair of polarized fishing glasses. Just get any polarized glasses that just allows you to see through the glare. I mean, literally, you can pick some of those up for 20 bucks if you know where to find them. So no need to spend the $200 on some eyeglassware that's out there. Just get a cheapy pair. As long as they're polarized, you're gonna be good to go. All right, so how do you save money on some of these items? I do happen to be a pro ambassador for several of these brands. Cortland, I had Cortland way prior to my sponsorship, but I am now sponsored. And if you go to my website, if you sign up to my email list, you can save a little bit of money on your first purchase at Cortland. And all the information is there on my website. If you don't have a local fly shop close by, Red's Flies, family-owned company, great flies. I use those nearly exclusively now, except when I go to fly shops because I have a problem and I buy way too many flies. But anyway, Red's Flies really are a great fly, and I've got a coupon code FFD that saves you about 20% at checkout. Flies can be expensive, so a little bit of money does help. When you decide that you want to put some waders, wading pants or waders, I do have a link for Drift, gets you a little bit of money off, and also gives you a free gift as well. So some of the perks of watching this video and following me is that you do get to save a little bit of money on some of this other gear. But again, there are a lot of gear out there. There's a lot of different brands. Hopefully this helps you kind of narrow down how to get started with fly fishing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to watch. and now you need a little help with your cast, right? So check out this video right here. 8 minutes, you'll be able to get that fly rod just a little bit further, or that fly cast just a little bit further out than you are today. All right, everybody, till the next time, fish on.